everyone, and welcome to Writers Drinking Coffee. This is a podcast where writers sit around drinking tasty beverages to talk about writing, publishing, and the whole creative process. There will be rants and raves and opinions that may not agree but are lovingly delivered. We will not censor ourselves, so consider us PG-13. Today, it is all about me, Jeannie Warner, with an episode 185 interview with Mark Roth-Whitworth. Welcome, Mark.
Thank you. Hi.
I'm so glad you have it. For those that wonder, we do have a delay in recording because we are missing people because of a hurricane in Southern California. Their internet is not reliable enough to talk about it. So at the risk of dating ourselves, here we are.
Is the other person going to be okay?
Pretty much. I got a picture of him lying on his bed with cats draped around him. So I presume
cats will protect him.
He seems to be well, insulated. There's a room that's all glass that may break through. So sorry, Dave, if you die, I want your stuff. That's about it.
Okay. It's because I have other friends in Southern California, and I worry. The advantage of having lived around the country, you have more things and more places to worry about.
It's true. And you came to us through a delightful path as well. Alma Alexander read your book and said, Jeannie, you've got to talk to this guy. This is really good. I think you'll like it. And I do. I want to say I love your 11,000 years.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It matters. One of the things that matters is what's the point in writing if you're not communicating?
That is the point. You have to reach somebody. And I find you can even be judged by the people out there who don't like you, that say, oh, I would have given this 1 star. I didn't like this. I dramatically didn't like that. And how dare you imply that X is bad? I'm like, I kind of like it for them. One, don't they realize that all reviews are good? So out there, everybody listening, review your books, whether you liked them or not. Just review them. It helps the writers. Yeah. And two, I found that I felt exactly the opposite as a 1-star review I found of it, which is like, yes, that crystallized like what I actually did like about it. So the year is 2169, right?
Yep.
You have a ship called the Hawking, presumably named after Stephen Hawking.
Oh, yes.
You have a black hole, which, always fabulous. And then you have a lovely event horizon, which instead of Land of the Lost sending them down 1,000 feet below, you go 11,000 years into the future, right?
Yep.
I think it's fabulous. I mean, first of all, from the emotional reaction of the various crew members of what it would be to realize that you never go home. Your home is dead. Your home is gone. For all you know, your home blew itself up because they were stupid 20 years after you left. But 11,000 years is very profound. And that is the first thing that you addressed. And I like that.
Yes, there's a really rough scene right after they find out where they are. And I've seen and read too much where, oh, wow, we've just jumped all these years. Oh, well, we'll go on, la-di-da-di-da. No, there's going to be a serious reaction. I mean, these are people. And
these are people.
Yes.
And you brought forth the truth that an asshole with anxiety doesn't get better when placed under extreme stress, which, we can all see in our lives in one place or another, but that was a very rough scene. And I'm not going to describe it now, but I'm going to say for those that have trigger warnings, there is a triggering scene in it. And
very much so.
But it is not gratuitous, which is one of the things I appreciated about it. And you don't dwell on it and go back to that kind of thing here and there through the book. It's literally everybody reacts, and this one guy goes in a really bad direction, and these things happen. And to deny they happen is to deny our humanity and the fact that we are a multicolored, multifaceted bunch of humans with different feelings and opinions and way of dealing with horror. Because it is horror, right?
It very much is horror. One of the reasons I chose 11,000 years was back in 2014, my ex and I went to the UK for Worldcon. And while we were there, of course, we went to the British Museum. And there are a literal handful of potsherds and some other things from the first layer of Jericho, which is the oldest city that we know of, at least in the world, 11,000 years ago. And as my character, as the captain says, they wind up as far from our time as we are from the first layer of Jericho.
Yeah. I liked that. It was a good image because it also reminded me of the meme that I saw that showed the Triceratops is just as far from the Tyrannosaurus Rex as the Tyrannosaurus Rex is from your cell phone. And that ought to make all of us who watch Disney as childs be upset about it, but it's still very real.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And then you have that they discover that, well, there is life out there and that humanity survived. And that's another really, really good moment of the, oh, thank God we didn't blow ourselves up 20 years after we launched, because some of us wonder sometimes, right?
Oh, well, see, if you notice, the ship is from the Terran Confederation.
Yes.
This is literally the next book. Let me note, by the way, nothing I'm writing is the first book of an 18-book trilogy.
Are you thinking a duology here? I could see this as a duology.
Every single book is standalone. It does not assume you read any other. But the next book, which is called Becoming Terran, is how we get from here to the Terran Confederation.
So what happens those 11,000 years when they were just living life as normal, right?
Well, you've seen in the book there are references to what's happened.
Yeah,
there are references, and when they do wind up on Terra with the enhanced, he mentions a few things that happened, but that the Terran Confederation that we did far better than we could have imagined with in creating it.
You have a really nice idea in there that it starts off, even with the Terran Federation and the mesh, the little nanobots that let you kind of have your built-in Google glasses, as it were.
It's okay. I have a flip phone. I do not have a smartphone. I hate them. Touch screens hate my fingers. Plus, the few times I've tried to give somebody information on their enter like an email or a phone number, my fingertips are too large for the virtual keyboard.
I too have been told by kids that I text like an old person, so I feel you.
I consider the virtual keyboard a really dreadful kludge.
Yeah.
And I want something that works. And lo and behold, this will work. You have an actual virtual it's really is augmented reality. You can share visuals with other people, but it's more like telephone calls or group telephone calls. It is not like the web. And
I saw it first a little bit like Charlie Strauss wrote Halting State, and I liked his cop space. So as you look up, you could see the reality, or you could see an overlay that every other cop can see at the same time of, okay, I've already run your identification, your history. I can see what you've done. Only yours was more three-dimensional, deeper into that. And I thought, and not hanging in front of your eyes, just hanging into your consciousness.
Oh yeah, and like yes, this is not something that you can confuse with the real world. You will know what's real and what's not. You'll learn.
You settle it. I mean, right up front in the first couple. One of the things I liked about it was I've been positing and thinking about beginnings. How do novels begin, and do they hook me in right away? And your mesh is what hooked me in right away, that this is future, not too far future, but definitely future. You know, there's some that are in, some that are out. Some people have refused. They say they don't want to be part of it on the same crew. But it was, you said it was future, and it was a neat little bit of tech right up front. And I loved that.
Thank you. You'll learn a lot more about the mesh and the meshocytes in Becoming Terran, because that's in the time period where it's developed. And by the way, also one of the three viewpoint characters in Becoming Terran is a white American woman who is seriously handicapped with a language processing disorder. Like
I feel
she,
like I know three of her already.
I can introduce you to my partner.
Yeah.
Um, but and in it, they're using the mesh to help her overcome it.
No, no, I like it. Like I said, I think
People
it's,
worry about genetic engineering. How about all the good things you can do with it?
yeah, exactly. And I liked that in this one, I felt that your bad guys, like you start off with a guy that you might be a bad guy in the Society for Humanity. I was almost in that opening imagining, but I couldn't remember the name of. There was this weird sci-fi movie, and I want to say it was like 80s sci-fi with sparklers type of thing. And and I'm killing myself that I can't remember the title right now, but it was one of those where you came in and you make a mistake, and are you going to get judged? Are you going to become hamburger, or do you get to serve time in other ways? And I'm
Oh yeah, no, it's really scary at the beginning at that part. Um, as I was saying before we started, one of the things I really, really hate are cardboard villains.
yeah.
Until you get there, until I jump to the uh, Hamad in the society, you know these people are nasty, but you don't know why they're nasty or why they put up with it.
Yeah.
And um, let me actually talking about the novel. Uh, the whole thing started. Um, there's a chapter in there in the first third called "A Sunset with Special Effects."
Mm-hmm.
Um, the summer of 18, I was talking to a coworker who had published like three books, and he let me read the first, and there were superheroes in it. And I wound up, I wrote well, I don't know if I should call it nonfiction or what, but an article for the WISFA, the Washington Science Fiction Association Journal, and of what's wrong with superheroes and supervillains. I mean, like Batman and Bruce Wayne and Lex Luthor are both billionaires. Lex Luthor has teams of people working for him. Sherlock Holmes had the Baker Street Irregulars. Batman is all alone doing everything.
Some of
Why?
us think that Batman should have just bought a couple senators and made this a lot easier. I mean,
Yeah, well, the other thing is a real superpowered person would not, as Tom Smith sings, go out bashing baddies in his BVDs.
right.
So
I love that song, by the way.
yes, so in that in a Sunset with Special Effects, you get to see what a genuinely superpowered person would do. None
Yeah.
of it none of it makes a green fist to bash somebody. It just you take care of things.
Yeah.
Once while I sent that out, and while it was bouncing, I thought about it. The more I thought about it, was like, I think I have an interesting universe here, and it's obviously far future. I want to know more about it.
That
And that
was what, so that was the moment that I kind of fell in love with the whole thing. I liked the opening. I liked the bit, but when you went there and said, this is like a whole branch of what happened over the 11,000 years, it
yep.
meant the fact that they were all galactic, they're all across, and there's different planets. And you showed me that it's not all the same. And that's what I love most about really good sci-fi and space exploration is why is this like that? Why did everybody go the same direction? What happens when this group of people go in an entirely different direction?
Mm-hmm.
And even the tone of the writing was different. So that's what I liked about it is you gave a very different flavor to each of the branches of that self-directed evolution.
Yeah, actually, I wrote the about the going back going up time 11,000 years, and sent that off to Amazing Stories when Ira Naylor was the editor, and a month or so later, I get two emails one morning. One is a standard rejection, and the other is, by the way, you should expand this and go and talk more about this, and actually, you should probably consider turning this into a novella. And
I like it. That's encouraging.
I'm
Wow.
sitting there going, and I email him back and went, but you can't do publish novellas. It's too long a form for you. Yeah, that's true. But and by the way, you really need to be present in this scene, not just refer to it, which was how that very harsh scene shows up.
Yeah.
And that got me to about 25,000 words. And then, as I said, I hate cardboard villains. So I started with Hamad. And when he got to 30,000 words, I decided this is a novel. And I wrote the last third that tied it all together.
Yeah, fantastic. Because I really loved Hamad. I thought he was fabulous. And he was very much the, you know, looking at the society that he lived in and benefited and believed in. Absolutely. But not in a Disney villain caricature way, more in I almost want to say in a Miyazaki way. It was just the path that he was on until somebody showed him there is another path.
Yes.
And the
yes,
consequences,
like Judith.
exactly, of not changing different directions.
Mm-hmm.
Also, my mom's name is Judith, so I thought of it as hers, even though it was Judith.
Yes, but the names mean a lot to me.
Yeah.
I spent a lot of the first few years of starting on this. There were days when, for hours or days, I'd be stuck on what does this ship or what does this person's name. And I worked very hard at not just making up. His name is Blithering Scope. No, no. Yes, I'm stealing from Akkadian and Chaldean and whatever I could find, like ancient names that, and then applying what little I know about linguistic shift.
Right.
Which is why those names come out that way.
There. And they were, I always get frustrated if they're completely unpronounceable and unmemorable, but yours are almost pronounceable enough that it's like, okay, I can go with that, rather than Commander or other something with glottal stops that are probably easier for somebody with a language with glottal stops, but I don't have them. So
yes, there are things that could be glottal stops. You'll see more well, like some of the like most of the members of the council of the society, where there's like a letter and an apostrophe and then the version of the name.
Right. And it makes me wonder, is it the honorary contraction as in the Dragon Riders of Pern, or have you done something different? So I can't wait to get there. You can't tell me. Don't spoil it.
Well, it doesn't mention it, but in a way it is sort of honorary.
Nice. Nice.
You'll see. You'll get the idea when you get there.
So can I ask you a nuts and bolts question here?
Sure.
You started with one, you got to a novella. Are you a paper writer, or did you stop and plot it? Or are you a scrivener man? How do you organize your thoughts to get here?
Well, my daughter and several other people have accused me of being a pantser.
Okay.
I don't really think of myself as one, because pantsers sit down, as far as I understand, sit down and write and see where it goes.
Somebody back referred to it as organic gardening because they didn't like the idea of it just being pantsing.
Okay. So. Well, for me, it's a little different. For me, it's I'll do whatever, go mow the lawn or I am not addicted to solitaire. I can quit anytime.
I bet you've quit 100 times or more just like that. It's so easy.
Yep. But, and then sooner or later, I will be told, sit down, open a document, and start typing. And as far as I'm concerned, I'm not developing it. I'm taking dictation.
Fair.
Literally, I'm taking dictation. There were a couple of short stories I wrote like 15 years ago that I've had to take apart and read. But of the novels and everything else I've been writing in the last like 4 or 5 years, I have not had to take anything apart.
Nice.
Polish, but I literally, I'm telling you, I'm taking dictation.
It's beautiful. Do you let your dictation go to a writer's group or friends that look at it and remind you that you don't have two thes in a sentence? Because that's all.
I have some beta readers, but my number one beta reader has been struck with a very, very extremely serious case of real life.
Oh, I'm
Like,
sorry.
oh
That can
yeah,
be fatal.
oh it is. I don't know if you noticed, but in the acknowledgments in the beginning, I mentioned that this book would have easily been thousands of characters longer, but he forced me to take out all those damn commas.
Oh, well, yeah. I have a comma problem myself, so I will not cast any stones.
My problem is I've looked up a few years back. I looked up uh, Johnson's Dictionary of English. The first one of English from the mid 1700s, and he
Mhm.
was referring to commas not uh, as clauses, but also as pauses, as though you're speaking this.
Breath marks.
And
Yeah. So if you're
those
taking dictation, no wonder you've got all the breath marks
I
in there.
want those commas in there to show you someone pausing in their speech.
Well, as long as it isn't William Shatner
Oh
pausing every
no,
line.
um, 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 my, I'm sorry, I have to tell you this. My late wife, uh, she was the one who was really going to be the writer. But anyway, the last full-time job she had, an office mate, beginning of the 1st of December, started putting on Christmas music. And
Okay.
as a response, her response to this was, um, she came up with a party game, like charades where write something and then you put it in a hat and you draw it and you have to try and do it. Well, in this case, you write Christmas songs and you draw it and then you have to perform them in the manner of William Shatner, as in play. They told me upon my drum, parum pum pum pum.
Or I don't know. Can I get Christopher Walken in there? Because I think I could do a good Christopher Walken.
uh,
I love it. So are you finished writing Becoming Terran or
Oh,
are you
oh no, becoming Terran. Okay, the publishing history is a little difficult here. Um,
publishing is challenging everywhere right now? So,
well,
yes.
okay, I'm making a point. I'm not self-publishing.
This is Ring of Fire Press still, correct?
No, no.
No? Okay.
Ring of Fire Press was what was Eric Flint's baby,
Right.
and about 3 weeks or so after he died, his widow had to shut it down.
Oh,
Uh,
I see
yeah.
news for me.
Oh, yeah. No, this was it's not that she wasn't being nasty. She's in a bankruptcy at this point.
Yeah.
So it's like it wasn't a matter of choice. But what, so at that point, it was out of print.
Yeah.
Um, I had gotten contacted by Bain telling me that Tony Weisskopf was considering rehoming at least some of us. And I was put in touch with her and uh, gave her the blurb. She said, sounded interesting. I sent her the manuscript. Plus, I actually got a review in Asimov's by sheer unadulterated chance, like the May, June of last year, like 2 months before it was the Ring of Fire Press was shut down. And it, I not to be mean, annoyed. I don't want to annoy anybody, but it was a long time, and finally I gave up. I'm not 20 something, and so I needed to be back in print. So yes, I cheated. My the Walt Boyes, who was the editor of Ring of Fire Press, had moved to Untreed Reads, which has been in business publishing for like 15 years or more, but they've never done science fiction and fantasy. So he and his wife have started a new line of books for them of science fiction and fantasy, which is called Novus Mundi. And so I finally gave up the waiting for Bain beginning of April and said, okay, he'd been after me to sign up with them, and so I said, let's do it. Since I'd been looking for an agent from last year, from January to through August, when Ring of Fire Press got shut down, for the next novel, Becoming Terran.
Right.
Um, obviously I wasn't going to do anything if Bain was going to pick up the one novel. I'm going to offer them that. Well, since that didn't happen, while we were talking about discussing the contract, I said, by the way, would you like to see my next novel? Um, an hour later, I get email back reading, don't you dare offer it to anyone else.
That's beautiful.
Walt
So,
believes in my writing. Um, I can tell you this about, here's something else about Becoming Terran. Its whole format is a good bit different than 11,000 Years. Uh, do you remember Brunner's Stand on Zanzibar?
yes,
Okay. And the style he used in that, of course, was the one that was created by Dos Passos for his USA trilogy a century ago.
right.
I'm using that in Becoming Terran.
Okay, I could see it. I
I've
could see
seen
it.
people refer to that as a pastiche. It's not. Um, the the it, Dos Passos and Brunner both had like occasional short chapters of clippings and stuff, news reports. I have occasional chapters of news feeds, and for science fiction, this works beautifully. I completely avoid, Bob, and info dumps. What you see in those little bitty chapters of news feeds is what is happening in the world around my characters, and what are they responding to.
I cheated and used that a little bit on something I've been working at now of like just, hey, advertisements from a local paper of the time, just to set the reader's mind of where they are and where you're going.
Yes,
So
it,
yeah,
it
it
works
works.
beautifully. You like I said, you don't have to have an info dump. You don't have to have, as you know, Bob. It's like, here's what's going on.
Yeah. I don't have to say, as you know, Hurricane Hillary passed through Southern California at this time, and well, wasn't that because who talks like that?
Yeah. No, no, no.
They
Um,
don't. It's
the,
beautiful.
the other thing is that in Becoming Terran, somebody there was a link in File 770 a few months ago where somebody was saying, all these, there's a future world society, or and like it's always like some hero does everything, or something like that. And,
Right.
so, and the link in the column, the person whose column it was said, what about real politics in the real world? Well, um, yes, that's what I'm dealing with. I'm trying to deal realistically with. Um,
I wanted to, in fantasy, that was why I liked the Witcher books better than anything they wrote for TV or anywhere else. Because in the Witcher books, it was taking fairy tales that I grew up loving and saying, if those were a real small town, of all of the fairy tales in the book, the Pied Piper of Hamelin is the most politically obvious. Yeah, a guy does a great service for the town, then doesn't get paid. So I
yeah,
I
not a
love
bad
it when
idea.
people actually use, because humans are complex and we're going to be complex 11,000 years in the future. And in between now and then, and since the walls of Jericho went down, we're complicated. There's people that are following the money, there's people that are following an idea as long as it doesn't compromise their money. There's people following their money as long as it doesn't compromise their ideas. And then there's people just trying to get along. And
Um,
and I
okay,
love that for your books and being able to, you've got all of those people in it.
there's even more people in it in Becoming Terran. There's a lot of people that that are ordinary people type, and how they respond to all of what's going on. And uh, okay, obligatory disclaimer: I'm a socialist, flat out. Okay,
Obligatory disclaimer, I
disclosure.
read your
Yes,
book, so I figured that out.
right. Uh, well,
There's a lot of democratic socialism that goes around in
yes, let me assure you that in Becoming Terran, the trillionaires are not the good guys.
well, I think Douglas Adams had the right idea that we should put them into one of those great big ships and I think it was Nona the Ninth also said, hey, what happens if we just put all of the billionaires in a small ship and send them down into the ocean? I meant Mars. I meant, oh,
Hey, they could have their cage fight down there.
it's my dream.
Well, I really think you're going to like Becoming Terran.
I
Um,
can't wait to read it. Well, I owe you the last couple chapters, so I'll send you a note when I've read it and let you know my final. But for
oh,
everybody out there listening, 11,000 Years is a really, really good book, and I think you will enjoy it. If you wanted a fun, future, hard science fiction with a little bit of politics, a little bit of humanity, a how we all adapt, I thought it was really good, and I liked it.
I, let me tell you, I spent a lot of time thinking about what was possible to happen, what was reasonable. It's
Yeah.
not. It's a very I'm bending my mind about trying to wrap my mind about what could be. Um,
Well,
have you met?
the math is reasonable. I had a brief sitting. I love physics, so of the okay, they have a 11,000-year-old ship. What advantages would it have against it? Well, it would be built against different assumptions. So I enjoyed the different connections you had in there. So even geeks, I think, will get something out of it if they just want to geek out on the math and the science. And well, why would something that old be able to defeat something that new? Like, well, I consider it that if I have a musket right now, I can fire 3 feet into water and hit you swimming down there. Whereas if I have a high powered ballistic rifle, as we know from Mythbusters, 10 inches down into the water and it shatters due to surface tension.
Right,
So sometimes your old tech has some advantages that should not be discounted in the world.
right, and especially if you use it in ways that they're not expecting.
Exactly. So, like I said, I geeked out on that a little bit and I enjoyed that.
Uh, yeah, by the way, I don't. I gather that some of my readers were a little confused in the scene where in the chapter where you jump back. Have you read the chapter where they jump back 2,000 years about the revelation?
Ah, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. That I worked really, really hard on the ancient aliens, and a lot
I
of a lot of them is a lot of it is we've seen this before. We're not interested in talking to you. Come back when you have something to say that's worth interesting.
Yeah, no, I dug it. Like I said,
And I'll tell you,
that
you'll run into.
everyone was complicated, that even the aliens are not frozen in time forever. And that's because time passes for everyone.
And when you get to when you run it later on, when you run into the aliens again, it's like my beta reader who knew what was going to happen told me it gave him shivers.
I still dig it.
um,
Well, we will put links to the fascinating things we've discussed during this episode on our website, which is www.writersdrinkingtoffee.com. Mark, thank you so much for both sharing this book with me and my team and letting us talk to the world about it. 11,000 Years, Novus Mundi. This is so cool.
thank you very much.
Thank you for taking the time with us today. And can you tell us when we can expect Becoming Terran out?
Hopefully later this year. I haven't been given a date.
Okay.
The 11,000 Years just got published literally about a month ago. And so I know they're I've been asked for some thoughts on a cover. I know that my editor is working real hard at dealing with the linguistic issues. That one is primarily due to the character that I mentioned who has a language processing disorder.
Right.
Which makes it real interesting to try and keep the spelling the same when it's really, that's not how she speaks.
All right. Well, don't use Grammarly. We all learned that. Do not use Grammarly. Well, At any rate, I should probably wind this down and tell everybody that they have been listening to Writers Drinking Coffee, a labor of love and enthusiasm put together by the hosts. Our main web magic is cast by Deirdre Schween, and our sound engineer and backup web spiders are David Welsh and John Schmidt. Our intro and exit music are performed by Michael Ingberg, whom you can hear from manyhatsmusic.com. Our podcast sponsors are Jackal Designs, The Bean Stream, Arm Street, and wherever you really enjoy having a cup of something, especially if you get to write where you're doing it. And hey, thanks for listening.